Arizona votes.
I'm Martha Maurer from the KTAR studios, giving you an update on how Election Day 2018 went. Arizonans went to the polls, and they went in large numbers. It's estimated that more than 2 million Arizonans cast their votes, whether they sent in their early ballots or headed to the polls. There were actually long lines at some polling places in Tempe, especially at ASU, but in the end, Arizonans had their voices heard. But it's not over yet, because even though we had a lot of races that were determined late last night, and of course, if you tuned into KTAR, you knew that we were live and local all day long, bringing you those results well into the night. But the big one, the Arizona U.S. Senate race, has still not been called, and the reason is because there are still a lot of votes to be counted. It is still too close to call to decide whether Martha McSally, Republican, or Democrat Kyrsten Sinema will be the next U.S. Senator from Arizona and the first woman from Arizona to be elected as Senator for our state. So let's talk a little bit about those numbers. I already told you it's projected that about 2 million or more Arizonans voted this midterm election, which would put it at a record-breaking year. But we also know that about 500,000 votes are yet to be counted. And the reason is because some of those were actually early ballots that arrived at the postal service, the postal office, or at election headquarters on election day. Those election workers were busy, as you and I and many other people were stopping by the polls, and so they didn't have a chance to open up those yellow envelopes that you sent in and put them through the machines and count them. So there are still many hundreds of thousands of ballots that arrived from being mailed in. There were also many others that were arrived, that were dropped off at the polling place, that were sealed, or that had provisional status, which means they had to be looked over again. They will still be counted, but it's going to take days. In fact, the Maricopa County Recorder's Office joined KTAR today to tell us that it could take a few more days, and that he's not going to give us a big update of how many more have been counted until late evening on Thursday. So that race, this U.S. Senate race, may not be decided anytime soon. Until Thursday at 5 p.m., we will know the big bulk of those votes that have been counted, because they are counted and verified by hand, because volunteers have to come in and double-check those numbers. But again, this was a big race because a lot of us showed up at the polls in record numbers. So the U.S. Senate race is still too close to call between Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema. Another race that has not been decided yet is a race for Superintendent of Public Instruction. The two candidates in that race are still neck and neck, and so these votes that have yet to be counted, about 500,000 of them in Maricopa County alone, which means many more for the state of Arizona. I've seen some estimates of upwards of nearly 700,000. We'll see where those final numbers are, but more than 500,000 in Maricopa County alone yet to be counted. All of those will potentially call those decisive races that are still too close, the Senate race and the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and also the Phoenix mayoral race. That one is going to a runoff contest in March, because the 4 candidates that were running for Phoenix mayor, the top 2 did not receive 50% of the vote. So Daniel Valenzuela and Kate Gallego will face off in a runoff election in March to figure out who will represent the city of Phoenix and the city council. So once again, about 500,000 votes have yet to be counted, and we won't know the bulk of them and how those play out in the U.S. Senate race until at the very earliest Thursday at 5 p.m. But keep it here on KTAR News, because we'll be bringing you the very latest on the election results from the midterm elections. It's Arizona Votes Election Day 2018. We got you covered on KTAR.com, 92.3 FM, and our KTAR app. I'm Martha Maurer from the KTAR studios.
I'm Bob McClay. Here's our top story.